in the culture right now. Obama obviously is one, the Dalai Lama is another, and Al Gore is a third. Um, and these are three men who seem to have Obama, obviously, with his partnership with Michelle and his position of openness and cooperation rather than confrontationalism and rather than a kind of John Wayne masculinity, he seems to have a greater breadth of emotional his emotional realm, and he seems to be an overall happier human being, and holding that up as a model. The Dalai Lama, obviously, millions of his people killed, but instead of responding with violence, responding by trying to become a beacon of peace, which is traditionally thought of as a more feminine quality, but obviously has encouraged and given so much to the global culture. Al Gore, breaking from his his father's desire for him to be a politician and to really mute his own longings by being in politics, departing from that, and again caring for the earth, which is considered again another, sort of feminine work of fertility and caring for the planet. And these are men who have really tried to become more, bigger than these ideas of what masculinity is, and pointing to them as role models, I think, is very instructive, especially for young boys and men. And then also, again, institutionally, I think that Obama should have a presidential commission on men and boys in which a lot of these ideas are discussed and disseminated. I mean, they should be a part of the national consciousness. So I think we're on the right track. I think there's a lot more to be done. I think men who are living this other mode need to continue to live it and share it. And also, I have to say, to honor that which is considered in some ways traditionally male. I think this is not about abandoning this longing to protect, the longing to provide. It's like the women's movement was not about abandoning what is feminine, abandoning motherhood. For instance, my last book was about growing up feeling that as a feminist I had to abandon these ideas of what was inherently or essentially female, like motherhood. It's not abandoning those things. It's about trying to apply them in ways that are more productive for the culture at large. So I think men will become more open to these ideas the more they realize they don't have to sacrifice everything, all of the good things that come with masculinity if they can be revisioned in a way that's powerful.
Okay. There are a number of social service folks on the phone, number sort of activist folks on the phone. Any sort of last questions or comments that you'd like to have directed specifically into the areas in which you work, where you can try to grapple with this whole question of men and women in alliances in either way that you experience it, or if you're talking about parents and social service agencies, if you're talking about colleagues within your workforce, any sort of questions particularly for Rebecca Walker about where you're at and how you can do some of this work? Questions or comments? Questions or comments at this time for Rebecca Walker before we're running out of time?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, good. I'm sorry. I had a hard time crossing over.
Okay.
I have a nonprofit drug prevention agency in Columbus, Ohio, working primarily inner city African American youth and their families. And I was looking or thinking about ways of building, relationships, and I really liked your talk about building relationships between men and women in organizations. And I was thinking of maybe some common or central themes that we can build relationships on or get, especially with our young African American men that we're working with, to really help them understand views outside of their own, and even try to develop conceptions of manhood that are different than what they're bombarded with through, rap music and a lot of what they think they have to be a man. So, just to see if I can get your feedback on maybe some themes that we can build on with them.
Well, I think one of the most potent is just helping them to see the ultimate outcome of some of those ideas, and to show them, where that's headed in terms of their relationships, their family lives, their professional careers, their sense of long-term fulfillment. I think what's happening, for a lot of young men is that they don't have strong models that are showing them how to be successful, purposeful men, how to contribute to their families and their communities successfully. And I think, articulating that again and again as a purpose of manhood, as a purpose of being a human being, is important. And they're not getting that message enough. They're getting, the opposite, just veg out in front of the video games and just, sort of don't grow up and don't take responsibility. But showing them the long-term impact of that, I think, is key. What happens to those men, and it is a good place to start. Also, I think that, a lot of this kind of work has to be done, primarily initially with men themselves, but then figuring out a way to bring in dialogues with women, because I think men really, even if they on the surface appear to not give credence or to not hear what women are saying, they're listening because they want something from women, and they have a sense that they need it, whether it's sexual, whether it's emotional, whether it's, I think we have to expect more from men, that they are human beings that long for human connection. So bringing women into the discussion at a certain point, I think, is really important. Having discussions between men and women that are frank and honest and mediated by someone who has the skills to translate to both groups, it can be very, very helpful. You see that a lot you're starting to see that more and more in sort of the domestic violence realm, where we're starting to talk about men not just as batterers and women not just as victims, but as both participants, men and women, as victims and as both in need of serious psychological support and familial support, and there's less of a demonization of men and boys, and I think that's very healthy, because really when you get to that level of abuse and behavior, you're dealing with deep patterns of learning, you're dealing with deep emotional wounds, and you're also dealing with a certain level of pathology that demands mental health interventions, and that's another key component of any successful transformation of our culture is mental health. I mean, we've skyrocketing mental illness in our country, and not as much attention given to providing mental health resources to boys and men specifically. So bringing more young men, training more men within, psychology, psychiatry, psychobiology, psychopharmacology, all of that is going to improve the overall situation, but the understanding, it's going to take a team. My husband has worked a long time in all kinds of systems in the psych business with men who are in prison, all the way up to the most privileged men. And one of the things that he says over and over again is people don't understand how much it takes to rehabilitate or to heal one human being. It takes a group of committed people. And so, we need to think in terms of more than just, one location of transformation, but in terms of, how realistically how many people and what the level of resources that need to be brought to bear on the situation.